Hello, everyone. I'm Joanna Linus, and I'm presenting on the responsible sourcing of colored gemstones, looking at the impacts on artisanal and small-scale miners. This research was conducted with financial and technical assistance from University of Dundee, Rio Tinto, and Ministry of Mines and Energy of Namibia. This is the outline of my presentation. I'll briefly go into the introduction and background, then looking at the concept of responsible sourcing briefly. We then look into the overview of the colored gemstones industry and what are the dynamics of artisanal small-scale mining, whereby we will then go into the responsible sourcing initiatives that we assessed in the colored gemstone sector. And then we then assess the potential impacts of these initiatives on artisanal and small-scale miners. And lastly, we'll give a conclusion and the recommendations. There were reports about conflict diamonds in the 1990s, as well as a movie Blood Diamond that was produced in 2006 that provided evidence that revenue from diamond sales in countries such as Angola and Sierra Leone were used to fund civil war in those countries. This gave rise to sustainability concerns among consumers as they started asking about the origin and production process of the products they were buying. As a response to consumer concerns, the responsible sourcing initiatives were launched in the jewelry sector, mainly in the diamond, the gold, and also the colored gemstone industry. However, the colored gemstone industry is unique from other jewelry sectors, and you will find out in the presentation why we are saying it's unique. The responsible sourcing doesn't have an international definition, but we have adopted the International Chamber of Commerce definition, which states that responsible sourcing is also referred to as supply chain responsibility, is a voluntary commitment by companies to take into account social and environmental considerations when managing their relationships with suppliers. And there are several approaches, which include supply chain due diligence, compliance with sustainability schemes, and traceability. However, in this study, we only looked at the supply chain due diligence as well as the initiatives that uses compliance with sustainability schemes. The colored gemstone industry, first of all, the colored gemstones are defined as all naturally occurring precious and semi-precious stones that possess a distinctive color, but this excludes diamonds. And this is a definition from the United Nations. However, there is no internationally definition of colored gemstones. It includes gemstones such as rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and others. Gemstones have been mined since prehistoric times for personal adornment and also as valuables of commercial standard. In 2015, the sector was estimated to worth about 17 to 23 billion US dollars. We tried to get an up-to-date figures. However, most of the figures we're getting include diamond, and that does not give a realistic view of the sector. This is a world gemstone map. As you can see, the gemstones are produced in many countries around the world, but mainly from Africa and Asia. So as you've seen in the previous map, the supply chain of colored gemstones is fragmented as the production is in over 47 countries, and over 80% of the gemstones are produced by artisanal and small-scale miners. And this is why we are saying the colored gemstone is unique or is different from the diamond and gold sectors. Because with the diamond and gold sectors, they are produced in a few countries and they have many large companies, unlike in the colored gemstone, which is dominated by artisanal and small-scale miners. The supply chain of colored gemstone involved 4 stages, mainly mining, the production process, and this is where we are going to focus our presentation on. And then from mining, it goes through cutting and polishing, and then through manufacturing, where the gemstones are put into watches and necklaces and rings, and then from there it goes to the retail stage. There are several sustainability issues in the colored gemstone sector, such as human rights abuses, which include forced and child labor, terrorism and wars, that were reported in countries such as Cambodia and recently in Myanmar, and also unsafe working conditions. Smuggling and illicit trading is also rife in the colored gemstone industry, as well as environmental damage. Although the mining of colored gemstone doesn't really go deep in the ground, on average, it goes about 10 meters in the ground. However, that is still an issue, and it cannot go unnoticed. Since we now know what is going on in the colored gemstone industry, and we have heard that 80% is produced by artisanal and small-scale miners, we now look at what are the dynamics of artisanal and small-scale mining? What is going on there in that sector? First of all, artisanal and small-scale mining generally refers to formal or informal mining operations, which with predominantly simplified forms of exploration, extraction, processing, and transportation. ASM, as it's generally known or referred to, is normally low capital intensive and uses high labor intensive technology. Globally, it is estimated that 40 million people are involved in artisanal and small-scale mining, with additional 150 million people that are dependent on it for livelihood, mainly in the downstream sectors. Women make up about 30% of the sector. And artisanal and small-scale mining has a socio-economic importance because it contributes to employment provision and poverty alleviation. Mainly, the people who are involved in, majority of the people who are involved in artisanal and small-scale mining are people with low literacy, people who cannot get employment in other sectors. And so ASM is providing the employment to people who otherwise would have not been employed. It also alleviates poverty alleviation, alleviates poverty, and it helps women to get some sort of source of income. ASM is also contributing to local development because mostly it takes place in remote areas, and sometimes it's the only source of income in those areas. And so mostly it provides a domino effect in the local economy in boosting SME development. ASM also contributes to national development by stimulating foreign exchange. It also contributes to global economy as many minerals, as we have stated, colored gemstone, are produced by artisanal and small-scale miners, including also gold, cobalt from DRC, and other minerals. Furthermore, artisanal and small-scale mining contributes to the attainment of sustainable development goals, especially the goals that are related to poverty alleviation, climate change or clean energies. As we've said, ASM contributes to the mining of cobalt in the DRC that is used in the production of batteries. Yeah, despite the benefits that we have just stated now, artisanal and small-scale mining has been marginalized on economic policies and development agenda. The population of artisanal and small-scale mining, the informal artisanal and small-scale mining, has risen in the recent years or over the past about 40 years, drastically due to structural and economic adjustments. There were economic reforms that were instituted, especially in Africa in the 1970s and 1980s. And that caused pruning of the public sector, scaling down of industries, and many people lost their jobs. So as a result, they found refuge in artisanal and small-scale mining. Also, the mining laws that were enacted in the 1990s, especially in Africa again, are not speaking directly to the realities of artisanal and small-scale mining. Most of these mining laws are more favorable to large-scale mining. And large areas are being granted to large-scale miners to the detriment of small-scale miners. The costs also are so high that they are only affordable by large-scale mining and not to small-scale mine, to artisanal and small-scale miners. That makes also that that puts that impediment to formalize the sector. The process also of licensing is bureaucratic, as most of the offices are in the capital cities. And as we have stated, that artisanal and small-scale mining is taking place in the remote areas. So it's costly and also a process to travel to cities to apply for licenses. And then the process takes months or years, and they will need to be commuting between the city and in their places of residence to submit documents and others. So that also discourages artisanal and small-scale miners from getting licenses or from formalizing. In addition, there has been an inadequate attention by development agencies. We have industry frameworks that we established, and from the beginning, they were not inclusive of artisanal and small-scale mining. And as a result, it just perpetuates the marginalization of the sector. Given this background, we now look into the responsible sourcing initiatives in the colored gemstone industry, and we look whether they are also perpetuating the status quo of marginalizing ASM, or whether they are also whether they are inclusive, and what will be those impacts on artisanal and small scale miners and generally on sustainability on its own. The initiatives that were looked at are Responsible Jewelry Council's Code of Practices, the World Jewelry Confederation Responsible Sourcing Policy, and the International Colored Gemstone Association's Code of Ethics. We looked at where they headquartered, who are the targeted industry actors, and what are the requirements and obligations. The results were that most of the initiatives are disconnected from the reality on the ground. All of the three that we assessed, they are headquartered in jewelry or in colored gemstone consuming countries and not producing countries. So that gives a gap of information of what is exactly is happening on the ground. So when they were designed, there's lack of proper background information on the reality on the ground. Also, all of them, they have requirements that are too stringent. The membership fees are too high. They cannot be afforded by some small-scale miners. So we're also saying that these initiatives are instigating selective buying and large-scale mining buyers, because the requirements, because they are already too high to be afforded by ASM, it just means that only large-scale miners can afford them. And it also means that if for those who are not now covered by the initiatives, it means that their products were not sourced responsibly. And that is the selective buying that we're talking about, that now consumers are like directed to say, you can only buy from this one, or these ones are ethically sourced and not the one from ASM. These initiatives are also just targeting low-hanging fruit and retracing straightforward supply chains, because with large-scale mining, it's easy to have a clean supply chain. And really, this is just, it's like avoiding where the problems are, avoiding where the sustainability issues are, and only focusing on where it's clean already. So what are the impacts then of these initiatives on artisanal and small-scale miners? Instigation of selective buying will mean that the trades of artisanal and small-scale miners will go down, which means this will be decreased incomes of ASM, and this will increase the poverty levels. And when the products from artisanal and small-scale miners are not being bought, it means that the miners will stop selling those products, and then they will move on to other sites, to other minerals such as gold. And that means that there will be an overcrowding of ASM sites in those for those minerals. This will just exacerbate the health and safety issues. Also, the instigation of selective buying and the fact that the incomes are now decreased will just expose the artisanal and small-scale miners into forced and child labor. Also, marginalization of ASM will just promote smuggling and illicit trading, because if artisanal and small-scale miners cannot sell their products to the clean supply chains, there will be they will be forced to sell to smugglers and illicit traders. And smuggling and illicit trading those funds are the one used for terrorism and war. So which means, again, marginalization of ASM just promotes terrorism and wars. Promotion of large-scale mining will just also exacerbate the environmental degradation, because although we are saying artisanal and small-scale miners also contribute to environmental degradation, their scale is not the same, because with large-scale mining, huge piles of earth are displaced, they are removed for them to access the minerals because they are using heavy equipment. And then also large-scale mining will just cause a quick depletion of deposits, because with small-scale mining, we are using sometimes just using traditional tools. It takes a long time for them to mine a deposit than it takes a large-scale miner. The marginalization of artisanal and small-scale miners will just perpetuate the sustainability issues in the colored gemstone industry, and the cycle will keep repeating itself. Because we're saying we have sustainability issues in the colored gemstone industry, and we want to solve them or to address them. And so that was done by launching responsible sourcing initiatives. However, the initiatives are marginalizing artisanal and small-scale mining. So this just means that more artisanal and small-scale miners are being pushed into informality, which will again just exacerbate the sustainability issues, and the cycle will just keep repeating itself as such. So what are the recommendations then? As we have seen, the responsible sourcing initiatives that have been launched in the colored gemstone industry are negatively impacting artisanal and small-scale miners, and this in turn is maintaining the sustainability risks in the industry. So it is highly recommended that formalization and integration of artisanal and small-scale mining into development policies should be prioritized, so that we stop the marginalization of artisanal and small-scale miners. Mainly, this is to the governments and the development agencies. Also, the responsible sourcing initiatives should be designed in a manner that takes into consideration the development role and the special challenges of artisanal and small-scale mining. Consumers also of colored gemstones should be sensitized about the economic importance of artisanal and small-scale miners and their challenges, so that they can employ policy changes from the government and to development agencies. And those policies should now be inclusive of artisanal and small-scale miners. Thank you for your attention, and I hope this contributes something to the responsible sourcing efforts that we are trying to address. Thank you.